to the Royal Perth Hospital Research Foundation. They have funded my research through the provision of a fellowship and also a Springboard grant. And I'd also like to thank the Future Health Research and Innovation Fund, who also supported the research that I'm going to be presenting today. So why is nitrate the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of human health? Well, in 1970, there was a pathway by which nitrate is detrimental that was identified, and that was through its ability to form nitrosamines. Now, nitrosamines can react with nucleic acids and are highly carcinogenic in laboratory animals and can cause cancer in humans. However, in 2000, a pathway by which nitrate may be beneficial to health was identified, and this is the nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway. And through this pathway, nitrate is a source of nitric oxide with benefits on blood vessel health. Now, nitric oxide plays a fundamental role in blood vessel health. It regulates blood vessel tone and blood pressure, and decreased nitric oxide is associated with a number of cardiovascular disorders. So these findings have an intriguing nutritional aspect, as nitrate is found in high concentrations in certain vegetables, particularly green leafy vegetables and beetroot. Hence why we're happy to see the greens on your plate. The pathway by which nitrate becomes a source of nitric oxide is now well described, and by blunting certain parts of the pathway, we can actually stop the effects of nitrate on blood vessel health through nitric oxide. So heart disease, nitrate, in fact, does say no through nitric oxide. So in 2018, more than 50 randomized controlled trials had actually shown that nitrate from vegetables improves measures of vascular health. And a number of these trials were conducted at the Research Foundation. However, in 2020, whether these short-term effects on blood vessel health with nitrate intake translated into long-term improvements in blood pressure and cardiovascular disease risks was unknown. And this was the start of my support from the foundation. So to answer this question, we needed to work out how much people were having in their diets. So to calculate nitrate intake, we created a nitrate from vegetables database, which we recently updated to include all plant foods. And what you can take from here is that really green leafy vegetables have the highest concentration. But we also created an animal nitrate content database, and this will come important later on. So we've since shown in a number of studies that habitual nitrate intake from vegetables is associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease risk. And the slide I have behind me is our latest addition to the research, and it was a large study that we published in 2021, where 55,000 people were followed for 23 years. And what we saw was that a lower risk of cardiovascular disease with higher nitrate intake. And if you have a look at the graph, at the x-axis, you're seeing increasing amounts of nitrate intake from vegetables. On the y-axis is your risk of cardiovascular disease. As your nitrate intake increases, so your risk of cardiovascular disease decreases. And this plateaus out at around about 50 to 60 milligrams of nitrate per day, above which you see no additional benefit. So the next step we wanted to do is have a look and see if there were effects on other diseases that are linked to vascular health. So we recently published this study where we looked at people with habitual plant nitrate intake, and we saw improvements in episodic memory and recognition memory in ApoE4 carriers. These are people at high risk for dementia, and improvements in language in non-carriers. So this is improvement in cognitive function. We wanted to see if this translated to lower risk of dementia. So this is some preliminary analysis that I'm showing you here. And around about 55,000 people, we see a lower risk in dementia with higher nitrate intake, around about 10% lower risk with people who are consuming a high amount of nitrate from vegetables compared to those with a lower intake. When we separate this into early onset and late onset dementia, we see a 35% lower risk of early onset dementia with a higher intake and a 9% lower risk with late onset dementia. So these results are great, right? So we're seeing effects on cardiovascular disease, we're seeing effects on cognitive function, and we're seeing effects on dementia. So what does this 50 to 60 milligrams per day translate into? If we have a look at the 2+5 recommendations, 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of vegetables, if we took 1 serve of those vegetables and made sure that it was half a cup of cooked or 1 cup of raw green leafy vegetables or beetroot, you'd get that 50 to 60 milligrams per day. However, there's still this question that we need to answer, right? The detrimental pathway by which that nitrate may have in human health. So could source be a crucial factor? So we do think so. We think there may be a different impact depending on the source of nitrate and nitrite and the co-occurring matrix of the foods consumed. So for example, when you have nitrate in vegetables, there could be vitamin C and polyphenols which blunt the formation of nitrosamines. And certainly there's a lot of fear in the literature and in public perception around the understanding of nitrate's role in human health. And this headline in the newspapers says it quite nicely: cancer alert over rocket, trendy salad leaves exceed safe levels of carcinogenic 1 in every 10 samples. And if you read the comments, people are confused. Also, a scientific report has stated the presence of nitrate in vegetables, as in water and generally in other foods, is a serious threat to man's health. So we're answering this question by conducting a series of studies called the Nitrate Informer Studies, which is an acronym for Is Nitrosamine Formation Dependent on Source? We need a good measure of nitrosamine formation. It's incredibly difficult to measure, so Professor Kevin Croft and Dr. Sujata Sindha have developed an assay to detect nitrosamines at really low levels, and this is being developed at the Foundation. We're conducting 7 clinical trials where we're investigating pure nitrate, nitrate from vegetables, nitrate from meat, nitrate from water, and combinations thereof. And also recognizing that nitrate is not consumed on its own, but as part of a dietary pattern. We're also looking in a dietary pattern known to be high in both meat and vegetable consumption, and that's the paleo diet. We're also looking at long-term effects. So is nitrate from different sources associated with an increased risk of cancer, particularly those cancers associated with nitrosamine stomach, colorectal, and bladder? And to do this, we're using our plant database, our animal database, and also a water nitrate database that we have access to that can track participants of the study's water nitrate intake to their address. And this is funded by a World Cancer Research Fund grant. So this is some recent analysis that we've just done in the last month that I'm presenting here. And what we can see that is plant nitrate intake is associated with a lower risk of mortality from any cause. A water source nitrate is associated with an increased risk, and animal sourced and processed meat source nitrate intake is also associated with an increased risk. So these results really need to be looked into and confirmed. So plant source nitrate intake is associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and mortality. However, animal source nitrate intake may be associated with an increased risk, and water source nitrate as well may be associated with an increased risk. So source of nitrate is indeed very important. So this work we think is going to have a huge impact, because in stark contrast to prevailing scientific and public health beliefs, It challenges the notion that nitrate, particularly those from vegetables, are carcinogenic in humans. And also the true impact of animal and water nitrate needs to be investigated fully because it's really not known. And the implications of these studies are going to be profound and change legislation, regulations, public health messaging, and community perceptions of nitrate-rich plants. And will address a glaring oversight in the ADI of nitrate intake, which does not differentiate between sources. And hopefully this research will also lessen the economic and societal burden of vascular diseases to Australia, which is costing over $12 billion and hopefully unlock the full potential of green leafy vegetables. Thank you.